You know, I put on pants for this. Welcome to the last day of the 8 days of HalfKocked, the last HalfKocked video of the year. It's finally over. 2017 come to an end. And here we are, the best movies of the year. And I only felt it appropriate to be sitting here next to my number one from last year, crack open a beer, and talk about some great movies. So, I'm by myself this time around. Like the last video, the worst list, I'm going to have everybody's list just kind of in a graphic at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. Some honorable mentions, the movies that were really fucking good but did not make this list. Mudbound, the Lego Batman movie, The Florida Project, Darkest Hour, Logan Lucky, Alien Covenant, Wonder Woman, and Free Fire. But now, here are the top 10 best movies of 2017. 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. This is one of the funniest movies of the year. It's a taut black comedy addressing political hot-button issues of the day, police brutality, the nature of justice, PTSD, and everyone's reluctance to really come out and address sort of the ugliness of our day. Aside from being this sort of heavy political piece, it's also a very human piece. It's one that recognizes we're problematic. I've seen some criticism of this movie saying that why does Sam Rockwell seem to have a redemptive arc? Why is Frances McDormand's character not a full-on, like, beacon of feminist hope? And it's because we are human, we are complicated, and we are self-destructive. One of the reasons that we're not able to succeed or to elevate ourselves as high as we do is because we have that sort of human nature that drives against us. And also, seeking justice is not that easy. This movie borrows from Tarantino and Cohen, not only in the comedy and writing, but I think McDonough touches on their idea that because we're human, justice will always be flawed. And whether we seek frontier justice or try to seek it based on the law, it's always going to be complicated and it's always not going to be clean. We have Frances McDormand showing resilience, strength, compassion, and vulnerability as a mother who's just suffering. This entire town, I feel, is suffering, whether it be from the racism of people like the cops, the people that are there to protect them, or suffering from their condition, their situation, tragedies committed upon them, the tragedy that they do to themselves and other people. It's a movie that is painting a stark portrait of America now. It's dark, it's funny, it's heartbreaking, it's truthful, and it's one of the best movies of the year. Patterson is a movie that came out in January for us. I know it hit festivals and some cities before that, but with my thing is, we're here for the Friday night crowd. If you're not able to go to New York or LA to catch a movie before the year's over, and the only chance you get is in the beginning of the new year, then fuck it. It counts as a 2017 movie. But Patterson is this wonderful, charming, I'd call it a Sunday hangout movie, where you're just watching the life of Adam Driver as this bus driver who is a poet. It's the details of an ordinary life that kind of make this thing interesting, and all these characters, even though they're not driven by some kind of plot, it kind of shows you that a movie can just be about people, and watching people live their everyday lives can be cinematic, can be emotional, can be something that transcends just the humdrum, mundane nonsense of everyday life. And even if you don't come from an East Coast background, even if you're not white, if you're not a bus driver nor a poet or inclined to any of these things, I think you'll be surprised by how, despite all of that, universal and charming this movie turns out to be. Trainspotting 2 is a rare sequel that is arguably just as good, if not better, than the original. It's all the disillusionment of living life, living normal, expected suburban life, but you also have this danger of nostalgia. These guys are former heroin addicts, and they're dealing with as many vices, if not more, than they were 20 years past. I feel like I could watch this movie, 40 years from now, 60 years from now, and I can still see these guys. because they're such fully realized characters, they stop feeling like characters and start feeling like people. I think it offers this nice vantage point on the original Trainspotting that makes you go kind of question everything at the end. Danny Boyle is a visual master, just kind of tossing in all this crazy editing and cinematography, and it's kind of like if Steve Jobs was a movie where he was just kind of trying something new with the structure of a movie, Trainspotting 2 is him losing his shit. Seeing these guys deal with the disillusionment of their lives and also the memories they have from before, the regrets and the achievements and some of the things they want out of life and they've never gotten, is fascinating. And watching these guys evolve and grow is something that's incredibly emotionally fulfilling, especially if you, like me, are a huge fan of the original Trainspotting and have so much investment with these guys. Let's do a Best Original Song nomination for No More Catholics. Man, that song's a fucking barn burner. Given the praise of this movie, this was originally a number 2, number 3 spot for me, but Mother is a fantastic allegory. For what? That's your opinion. Darren Aronofsky basically grabbed this house, built the entire story around it, and it's paced perfectly, it's acted perfectly, the cinematography is amazing. Especially when you get near the end and everything goes to hell. Just think about, wow, this is all taking place in a house. This isn't, you know, different locations. It might be different edits, but it never feels choppy. It always feels seamless, like you're watching this through Jennifer Lawrence's point of view. And on top of that, I think it's a scathing critique of Christianity. It can be an environmental piece, a critique of the patriarchy, of the original family dynamic. There's a lot you can pull out of this. It's dark. Again, I like dark movies. I think it's partially funny, but kind of in an absurdist way, like, oh my god, like, look at this fucking thing that's happening. That's insane, but that's really funny. If you watch the trailer and you think this is a horror movie, like Get Out or like the Insidious movies, no, that's bad marketing. You've already been burned with It Comes at Night. Do not come in like that. Think of this kind of like as a really fucked up drama. I would lean more towards something like a Lars von Trier movie or The Neon Demon. Even though it's not as glittery as The Neon Demon, definitely kind of has that fucked up observatory critiquing vibe. So yeah, Mother, great movie, watch it. Oh, Liam. You're gonna be proud of me. I finally broke out. I put a Netflix movie on my top 10. Not only did I put a Netflix movie on my top 10, I put a documentary, that's right, Jim and Andy, The Great Beyond, with an obligatory contractual entrance by Tony Clifton. This movie is about Jim Carrey's time filming Man on the Moon, the biopic about Andy Kaufman. And the selling point for the movie is that this footage shows Jim Carrey in a light where the studio didn't want to release it for 20 years because they think that Jim Carrey would be box office poison. That if anybody saw that footage, he would look like an asshole. And that's because he immersed himself so much into this role of Andy Kaufman that he wouldn't respond to Jim. He would be Andy Kaufman, or he would be Andy Kaufman's alter ego, Tony Clifton, who's just this absurd, loud, ridiculous, rude guy. I think what it does is offer context as to why somebody who's so insane or so crazy to other people or so passionate about what they do, why they do what they do. I like that it's Jim Carrey with enough time to really give a vantage point on what he was feeling and why he would involve himself so much. To him, Andy Kaufman was not only one of the funniest comedians out, but he was this sort of embodiment of freedom that he felt like he was missing in his life. So he would dedicate himself so much, not only because he respected the guy's work, but because the guy embodied something that Jim Carrey really wanted to feel and accept and really live in for a while. I think this movie, if you're a big fan of Ed Wood, again, if you're a big fan of Disaster Artist, check this out. This is one of the funniest movies of the year. I had a blast watching Jim Carrey fucking troll the Playboy Mansion and get into fights with wrestlers and talk shit about everyone on the cast. This is just a pure entertaining movie. It's fascinating, and it really kind of hit at my core to where it makes you look at sort of the profession of acting and what acting can do for those people that embody that character. It can kind of be this emotional release or kind of this therapy, something that I don't think gets addressed nearly as much as it should in film. So, if you got a couple hours on Netflix, definitely watch Jim and Andy: The Great Beyond. It's a fantastic fucking movie. I think Lady Bird evolves the coming-of-age genre more than some people would expect. I believe we are, in some essence, shadows of our parents. We are raised by these people, we're nurtured by them, and it's our inner nature that'll kind of deviate from that a bit, or evolve, or push forward. Lady Bird has the gift of seeing where her mom has ended up at this point, and she can decide whether she wants to take steps to move in a different direction or not. I think that's smart. And even if you're just looking at this as a surface level coming of age movie, it's hilarious, it's sweet, it's endearing. Saoirse Ronan is probably the best she's ever been. I feel like I could keep saying that year after year because her performance is so strong and she's so magnetic and charismatic on screen. We keep getting movies like Morris from America or The Edge of 17, or even some of the YA novel adaptations like Perks of Being a Wallflower and Fault in Our Stars that are taking these stories of teenagers and really doing something new with them, giving them fresh takes, fresh approaches. I think it's a nice form of therapy for people if maybe they're fighting with their parents. And yeah, Lady Bird is a movie that I've been consistently thinking about since the time I watched it, and I'm kind of impressed by how strong this movie is. So do yourself a favor, if it comes out on DVD soon, check that motherfucker out! Thor Ragnarok. Simply put, the most fun I've had at a movie this year. This is a bright, neon technicolor smorgasbord of 80s. Whether it be science fiction, fantasy, action, adventure, you fucking name it. This movie has it all. I like that Taika Waititi can, give you medicine with a shit ton of candy. That he can talk about sort of the follies of our past and how we try to redeem ourselves, or how do we try to not only recognize our mistakes, but move forward from them. So whether you want to talk about Thor Ragnarok as a movie about colonialism, I think it is to some degree. This movie feels like it does justice to the myths of Asgard. Whenever you think of the god of thunder, do you not immediately think of this gigantic burly man crashing down, fighting demons, shooting lightning from his fingertips, while the greatest rock band of all time plays in the background? If you don't, I feel sorry for you, because it's amazing. This movie constantly left my jaw just dropped in utter glee. This is something that kind of gives that Saturday morning cartoon chocolate cereal chomping person that loves these things in my soul, it gives them an outlet, it gives them a release. But it's not stupid, and it's not mindless, and it's not done without care. Thor has never been better. Hulk has never been better. Shit, Bruce Banner has never been better. I love Mark Ruffalo's kind of like laid back, bouncing between both personalities take on this. Tessa Thompson, I mean, my God, that woman, she needs way more work. Cate Blanchett, probably the best Marvel villain ever made, just because she chews so much scenery and she has so much fun with this role. After a while, I thought that I really couldn't have a lot of fun in Marvel movies. It feels like a lot of them have kind of been stuck in trying to universe build, that they don't really go out and branch out and really kind of become movies that are identifiable in and of themselves. I think it's the best Marvel movie ever made. I had so much fun. I don't know how you haven't seen it, if not seen it twice, but if you haven't, do yourself a favor, boy. Get you some chocolate frosted sugar bombs and shit. Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Yes, this is the best Star Wars movie ever made. Fight me. It is basically the punk rock Star Wars. It's a Star Wars movie that is self-aware, that is critical of itself and of the fandom and of the phenomena of Star Wars. This is a movie specifically about the Force, where every character is dealing with some form of balance, whether it be Poe and Vice Admiral Holdo kind of dueling out whether they should fight, they should run, or they should wait and try to plan. For Luke, it's the balance of how do you, hold yourself accountable for your mistakes in the past, but how do you evolve and keep going forward? With Finn, it's kind of balancing the need for self-preservation with the need to take action and be righteous. And I like that this movie is constantly handling all these things, juggling them at once, and really focuses on kind of burning the old traditions, not because they don't matter, but because we need to evolve. And that's what we do as people, and that's what we should do with our myths and our storytelling. It's kind of stripping away the poison of nostalgia and idolatry for the media and things that we love and consume, and looking at, what was this really trying to say? What was this trying to get to? This is some of the best lightsaber battles on screen. The cinematography is, every second is screensaver worthy, man. You watch just ships crashing into other ships, kind of these World War II-esque battle scenes with bombers that feel like a chess game. You've got these fantastic little creatures. The magic on screen is always there. People say that this movie echoes Empire. I think what it is a mirror of Empire. It looks like it, in some ways it feels like it, but when you really put the images side by side, they're never going to be the same. And this one deviates so far from Empire and from Star Wars as a whole, while still holding the kind of window dressing that makes Star Wars likable and fun. What it really is a movie that evolves the series. In a giant corporate monolithic time that we have Disney buying 20th Century Fox and putting out a Star Wars movie every single year, I'm amazed that Disney took this risk, that took this story that's one man's vision, that kind of takes it back to basics, not in a lightsabers, wizards, the kid leaves home to be a hero, but in the themes, that puts a psychological spin on Star Wars. That's something that just stuns me, and you gotta commend Disney for it. Dunkirk! I gotta admit, it was a really tough battle between Star Wars and Dunkirk, but what I landed on was, I think Dunkirk is the best directed movie of the year. This movie is, wound like a clock, and it's edited and crafted in a way where all the stories will weave around that ticking noise. Dunkirk is a time bomb. It's a movie where you're constantly fearful, where you're worrying and looking over your shoulder because in any moment, bombs might fall out of the sky. You might see the hull of your ship cracked and water floods in, and you'll immediately have to go from, eating a dinner to trying to survive. You see the larger than life odds they're up against. You see the tyranny of the German army. You feel like a tiny ant while all this rage is going around you. And I think that's kind of why Nolan decided to go for PG-13. Because with these wide shots, it's not like you're going to see a sea of blood spray in the air. You're always going to feel small, and you're always going to feel the scope of this. And that doesn't necessarily give way to see, body parts flying around everywhere. You don't really need it. I thought the characters, while some things are underwhelming or kind of underdeveloped, I thought they were just fine. Because in this time, in this urgent area, you don't have time to spill a backstory. You gotta run, man. You gotta duck. You gotta hide. You gotta fucking fight back. Do whatever you can to make it to the next second, the next scene, the next day. I love that this movie, whenever danger starts kind of waning down, it'll cut to another scene, and bam, you're back in it again. This moment that just utter fear that's in you this entire time, it's breathtaking. And this all wouldn't work if Christopher Nolan and crew didn't know exactly what the hell they're doing. If they weren't so meticulous and so detail-oriented into getting this feeling jammed, not only kind of like beat into your head, but accepted, lived in. While you're watching this movie, you genuinely feel like you're being hunted. And that's something that creates empathy. It's kind of the basic foundation of movie making. If movie making is supposed to help us experience other stories and other people, then creating a movie specifically around a feeling that was in somebody else. And not only making you feel it, letting you feel it. You feel like you're living it. That is a high achievement, one of the highest achievements you can achieve as a filmmaker. Dunkirk. I need a breather. Martin Scorsese's Silence. Silence is a personal pick because when I grew up, I was kind of debating a lot with religion, and this movie is about that. The story of these two Jesuit priests. Andrew Garfield is put in Japan to look for Liam Neeson, who may have completely abandoned the faith, and when he gets there, he just suffers an odyssey of trials. Stuff that's there just to break him down to bones and really get him to question why he believes in God, if he still believes in God, and for what reasons he wants to try to spread the message about. You know, it's Martin Scorsese, so there comes a level of maturity when you're a filmmaker, and as great as Scorsese is, he just has a way of telling this intimate story that really should take place in the mind. He has a fantastic way of putting that out into the real world, making these subjective camera movements that really get you into the mindset, of Andrew Garfield and what he's suffering through. This movie is not the most gory nor violent, but it hurts purely because you realize that most of the violence is being done towards innocent people. And it's not like Scorsese lets you look away. Even if you do look away, you hear just this agonizing scream of the people that are in pain and are suffering. And, you know, there is, you know, nothing else but silence. It's a movie that I can relate to, but it was more intimate than that. It's like someone entered my thoughts, my brain, and brought that out. So for me, Silence is one of the most powerful movies I've ever seen. It really does handle that kind of failure, that constant failure that creeps in your head that makes you think that you're not worth it anymore. And it tests you, it tries you, it puts you through the ringer with challenges. And you know, some might say the ending is a little too Hollywood and a little too cheesy, but man, if you're watching this through to the entire end, you want some semblance of hope. And Silence is not without hope. Even if you're not a Christian, I think you'll find something to really latch onto in this film. If not for the themes, then maybe for the actual story, the plot, and the characters, because everything that builds around this nugget of faith in the movie is incredibly strong. Silence is a movie that broke me, shattered me, challenged me, and ultimately left me thinking, how do I get better? And I think that's what a good movie, to sum up a year, should do. That is it. HalfKocked, we are done for 2017. Those were the top 10 best movies for me for the year. We'll have the list for everybody else here, but I want to talk to you about a couple things. One of them being, as always, thank you. Thank you so much to anyone who's watched a video, commented, liked, subscribed, who's hit us up on Facebook or any one of these social medias that we're on. Thank you for offering your suggestions, for sharing jokes, for being this little community, being part of this little community that we're kind of cultivating over the years. Next year, I want to do more with less. You're not going to see as many after credits episodes as you have this year. After credits, I think we're going to relegate that solely to the tentpole movies. But instead of those kind of videos, I'm going to try to mix in more kinds of videos. You're going to see a resurgence of Viewer's Choice. You're going to see more What's Your Points. You're going to see us doing more Half Nelson episodes and maybe other things that, if you like the Cards Against Humanity video, we might throw in card games. We might throw in music. We might throw in video games. Any suggestions that you have for new shows, new ideas for this channel, please leave those in the comments below. Also, I am tired as shit. I have done 8 videos in a row. It seems to be ceaseless. So for the next 2 weeks, we're not doing anything. HalfKocked is taking a break. More specifically, I'm taking a break from editing these fucking videos. We'll see you around the time, I think, when the Oscar nominations are going to come out. Probably around the 23rd is when, the week of that is probably when we're going to be coming back and talking to you more about those kind of things. But again, like I said, thank you so much for the support and for watching. Take care. Happy New Year. We'll see you in 2018.